Perfect. Okay. All right. Happy New Year, everyone. Thank you for all showing up. We are recording this, and I'll post this on Facebook when we're done. We'll go over a couple of the items here, that we've gone over on council, and then we've gone. Actually, we'll start off with the ballot measures first, and kind of go from. Actually, no, we'll do council for items first. Julie, I see you're here for waterfront. Good seeing you. We have a lot of things that have happened in these last few weeks, even though it's been January. It's been somewhat slow. We only had we had 3 council meetings. The first meeting in January, and then we skipped the week and then came back the 17th or something around the 17th, and then we came back again last night. Actually, we ended, believe it or not, we ended at 4:15 in the morning, and that was the longest council meeting we've ever had. So at the beginning of the month, we had updated our records retention policy. And real simple, what does that mean? That means our 30-day records retention policy for emails has been changed to 2 years. So now when we get an email, it is in our system for 2 years rather than what it was for 30 days. And that was effective immediately. So now when you send us an email, which is kind of nice, believe it or not, we have access to it at the council level for more than 30 days. I've been trying to change that for years, pulling teeth. Next thing is we updated the Harbor Commission appointments qualifications. So some of these commissions that we have, Harbor Commission, Planning Commission, Public Arts Commission, have certain qualifications to go along with the choices, the individuals. And on the Harbor Commission, there was this position called HAPLA position, Harbor and Pier Lease Association. And that group doesn't exist. It hasn't existed for many years. And they were supposed to be sending in their recommendations for the Harbor Commission. They haven't been doing that, or they just giving just one person. So in effect, it hasn't been the mayor who's been choosing the Harbor Commissioner. It's been this group that doesn't even exist anymore. So we got rid of that group, and we made it an at-large position, and said that if the Harbor and Pier Association lessees, that would be the King Harbor Association and the Pier Association, if they want to turn in a list of people to the mayor for choices, they can do that, but it's not required. The mayor does not have to choose between their choices. So that's kind of nice. That's actually a big cleanup. Like I said, the HAPLA organization hadn't been around for a lot of years, to say the least. So that was the first meeting of the year in January, and I don't believe at that meeting we did not. So the second meeting we had on the consent calendar, Councilmember Rabaji pulled this. We have hired a architectural firm called the Gensler Corporation, and they are in downtown Los Angeles, and we have gone into a contract for $70,000 to redesign the Joe's Crab Shack location into a waterfront education center, or waterfront education style facility. And a quick history on the Joe's Crab Shack location: we bought that lease back for around $750,000-$800,000, I want to say, about 2-3 years ago. And they had about 10-11 years worth of term on there, meaning they had extensions at the time for about 10-11 years worth. So currently today they would have had about easily 9 years, 8 or 9 years left. And come in September, this last September, they literally just closed the doors, brought in a moving truck, took all their equipment out, and then and left, and didn't pay rent, didn't say anything, just gone. They are in bankruptcy, I believe. Joe's Crab Shack. So we're in the process of getting our rent back from them. And it would have been a really dirty mess if we wouldn't have brought that lease back. So it would have been gone to the bankruptcy court and we had to deal with that whole process. It would have taken us years to clean up. So essentially, we have the lease for that, no more tenant, and it's a free and open space for us to be able to do what we need to do. What's important about that is there's been a lot of ideas through this harbor amenities plan as to what to do with that space, and the space that the idea that's come up is using that as a waterfront education facility. So this is kind of our first step. It is rentable space, so if we do find a tenant, we'll rent it out to the tenant. If they want to be there for a short term, 2-3 years, whatever it takes for us to be able to execute a design at that location. It will need Coastal Commission approval. So whatever we do, we'll need to go through Coastal Commission. That's an extra year's worth of step. One more extra year with a step in the process. So yeah, let me know what you think. I think it's a good step moving forward. It's something different that we've been doing. We need to have more a year-round attraction down the harbor. I know San Pedro has their educational facility, so it's it's something that's better than what it used to be down there. So the building itself is falling apart. Julie, do you have any questions or comments on that? Yep.
Yeah, sorry, I had to unmute myself.
No worries.
Yeah, I was just curious if we were going to have the local charities that teach in the harbor as a part of the design concepts. I know I've had conversations with Greg and Lori, but I haven't heard anything formal about what that process is going to look like. Any thoughts on that?
That's a good question. So all we've done right now is hire a design firm. I don't know if part of that firm, let me look at the contract right now. I don't think that part of that firm had any type of, maybe they did have some type of a public component to it. I don't think they did, but they could have.
Well, when I talked to Greg and Lori, they were talking about having them do a design concept and then going to the public. And I suggested that it might be beneficial to have at least some discussions with those of us who teach out there, because building a facility on land versus being by the water and having it, it's two different things. And also taking a look at what we do for display to the public and how that needs to be designed. Because when you're doing that, it's 60 kids in a bus, very similar to how C-Lab used to do theirs. And then being able to access the water with other programs. So it's kind of like two different parts of the same building. So anyway.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. I'm looking at the administrative report right now. I think you're right. They didn't have a public component to the design process. I don't remember seeing that. I know the staff already reached out to represent the Seed School in Los Angeles while boarding through a partnership with Seed.
That was the other thing with the Seed School. I didn't quite understand that relationship either, because essentially from my experience in doing this stuff for a few years now, an organization like the Seed School would actually be a client or a customer for whatever facility goes in there. Because certainly there's a lot of different schools that I know we work with on a regular basis that would, you know what I mean? So I was unclear about what that association was about.
Yeah, me neither. I don't. This is the first time I heard about Seed School in the staff report, and I don't know where that came from. Staff must have obviously had some sort of relationship with the Seed School. I have to find out about that. Mark, do you know anything about the Gensler contract for the Joe's Crab Shack site and how the Seed School got in play with that?
No, that was a surprise to me, just like the two of you. Where that came up from, I have no idea.
Okay. You have any other questions on that Gensler contract with Joe's Crab Shack side? Right before you got on, I just kind of explained the history. We bought out the lease for, you know, 750, 800,000 right in there. And that we own the lease, own back our own land. And everyone stepped away, or Joe's Crab Shack stepped away in September, and they disappeared on us. Yeah, any other thoughts or comments on that?
Yeah, you know, I apologize for getting on late. I was having trouble getting signed on. Did you guys cover the fact that simultaneous to us getting the architect item on the agenda, that I saw the two lease signs out front, went on to the leasing site and found a giant 7-page leasing advertisement, including a professional drone video advertising to lease it for 3 to 5 years. I sent that to all of you on the city council. The next morning, the mayor sent me an email saying, thanks for pointing this out. I didn't know they were talking about anything long-term. And I saw Todd Lowenstein, well, the same night I saw you over at the fundraiser, mentioned it to him, and he practically quoted the mayor. He says, yeah, I'd heard some talk about something short-term, but you know, nothing long-term like this 3 to 5 year thing. So there appears to be quite a disconnect from between city staff and the city council.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about the drone video either. I mean, we did talk somewhat about internally about I mean, never as a group, I don't think, as that particular location 3 to 5 years, but it will take 2-3 years, 2 years for us to get a design, or whatever it may be, a year and a half, 2 years, whatever it may be, year and a half, let's say year and a half to get a good quality design, best case scenario. I'd say we submit that to the Coastal Commission. It's going to take a good year from there. So that's, you know, 2.5, 3 years right there, just in design and approval phase. And then we have to hire out a contractor, and then also get money. I mean, this stuff doesn't take money, right? So either state money or private money, whatever it may be. So it makes sense that they say a 3 to 5 year. Once I can, you kind of break it down. You know, I don't know what the internal. I remember the conversation we talked about. Joe's Crab Shack took all the valuables, essentially.
Right.
I'm not sure how much was left. So it's going to take some money to get that place back up and running again. So yeah, that's going to be a problem too. So it's going to, if it takes a little bit of investment of time, of money, then you're going to give some a little bit more term for somebody. 5 years seems a little bit long for us to be leasing that location out. 3 to 4 years seems about appropriate.
Yeah, well, and in addition to Joe's having, you know, cleared all their stuff out, Craig Stanton over at Redondo Beach Marine, I understand, has been put in charge of getting the place cleaned up. And then, of course, as you know, we had the big vandalism, and he described it as professional vandalism, in that they knew exactly what to take in terms of water valves and so forth. And, you know, he was saying, just as a rough guesstimate, 150 to 200,000 just to get it to the point where then you could lease it to a restaurant. And then, of course, they're going to have a huge capital investment. So one of the huge disconnects I see in all this is how are you going to get any restaurant? And of course, that place was falling down in the first place. You know, all the managers would tell me that they couldn't even get money to replace the termite rotted decks. You know, so it needs a lot of help. And so it's very hard for me to imagine how any restaurant's going to come in and dump hundreds of thousands into that if we tell them, oh, you've got to be out in 3 years because we're going to do a marine education facility.
Right. Right. You know, it almost seems like we should just scrape the building and use it for parking. I mean, something like that, you know, something low cost. If we're going to get rid of the building, just get rid of the building. I mean, we're doing that to the pier, the sports fishing pier, right? We'll talk about that next. But yeah, I don't see anyone coming in and utilizing that facility for any type of restaurant. Like you said, it's going to take a lot of money to update it. And it was during the meeting they said about the vandalism, correct?
They kind of brushed over it, and I got the impression that city council hadn't been told about that yet.
Yeah, I didn't know about it until they talked about it.
Yeah.
Um,
But I would offer to you that, you know, the one person that we know of that could go in and use that like within the week is online with us here, Julie Colliner Waterfront Education Program. You know, she's been effectively operating out of a cement floor, unfinished, building over at the old AES site. You know, I would say within a week, you know, you could put up some plywood, make the place safe so the kids couldn't, you know, get to the gas stoves and so forth. I mean, that just seems very easy to me. And then the beauty is it would be an experiment, okay? Julie would be figuring out what works and doesn't work, and it'd give her a lot of knowledge then to bring back to that architect, because she'd be experimenting with it, you know, as we speak, getting all kinds of great ideas. So, you know, and I don't know who else might, you know, I don't know if the White Shark guy might want to come over and hang out with Julie, same thing, do some temporary stuff. But yeah, my personal opinion is blow off this whole restaurant thing, get Julie in there and anybody else that wants to use it temporarily. Let's experiment a little bit. Julie's pretty flexible. I think, you know, we could do that. And then when we got the plans drawn and we got some money, Julie would figure out some way to operate someplace else in the harbor while we built the new bitchin' thing. Sorry to speak for you, Julie, but isn't that pretty much true?
Yeah, it's almost like I paid you. Yeah, we've been on a construction site for a while now in our current facilities. But to give you an example, you know, the design of the building kind of goes hand in hand with where you're going to get your funding. So one of the things that is very hands-on that we could do is a weather station. And if we put a weather station in, then we tap into all sorts of things from NOAA. So it kind of goes hand in hand. I certainly have some ideas what works currently for us and would work for other people. But I think that we kind of are putting the cart before the horse. Certainly, I would love to go in there. I haven't seen the building in quite some time. And even though we're a small harbor, the north part of the harbor is very different than the south part of the harbor as far as marine life and what's happening with the water and the waves and that sort of thing. So yeah, I would love an opportunity to do that. I brought it up to Greg and was told pretty much that because it was a restaurant, we couldn't go in there. And I was like, I don't understand why, because, you know, it's like water and cafeteria. I mean, we have aquarium tanks and things like that that could use the water, but you know, like Mark said, the way we've been existing over at the old AES, once they tore down all the aquarium facilities, is I'm telling you, Joe's Crab Shack is better than where we're at right now, for sure. At least I don't have tunnels 30 feet down that I have to worry about kids falling into.
Yeah, the old Sea Lab site. I mean, that's Leo's property. That's private property, so that wasn't the city property.
That's correct.
Yeah. You know, you bring up a good point, right? Why not use it? There's got to be some sort of I don't know. The staff has some thought going into what's going on there, but I don't know if that facility is even. Well, let me put it this way. It sounds like when Joe's left, they did not leave the facility in a commercial operational point of view, and since the city is very liability adverse.
Yeah, they are.
To say the least.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't seem like that would have been a proper usage. They got to clean it up. I think, well, I'll tell you right now, Julie, as well, I do know for a fact that we don't really, technically speaking, have full site control yet, legal site control of that site. We are still technically in a lease with them. They technically owe us every single month for rent and back rent as well. So we can't just go in there and start doing whatever we want to do.
Yeah, got it.
So that's a big part of the conversation is this the legal aspect. We can't, you know.
Understood. Another thought is if we do scrape it, it's easy enough for me to get donations to put temporary classrooms there and bathroom facilities. And that's another way that we could kind of maybe phase it in as we go through the design process and Coastal Commission.
Yeah, that's actually a great idea. Why not just scrape it and then put up some of those mobile modular things that they've got and kind of take it from there, you know, build from literally the ground up, right?
Yeah. Well, then that's basically your prototype phase. You know, we start working with the, you know, the local charities that teach out of the harbor, and we start to define and shape the space. like I said, compared to what we have right now, the old bungalow that's on the AES property, it's just a way to get going. And I think also visually, it will show the public that, yes, we are committed to redoing, the south part of the harbor. Because it's been so long and so many promises. And, another thing too, beyond just getting money for the building, is we already go after programming grants. And I know everyone is super excited about getting the inner city kids down there. And we absolutely can do it if we've got a foothold. I mean, I do it all the time right now. So it's just a matter of having a launching pad or, a classroom space that we can have them come down to. And then I've already talked to Craig about where we could potentially put kayaks and stand-up paddle boards that are actually on that part of the harbor. And we're a part of the LA STEM Collective, and we're putting together a big STEM Fest in April. So there is more desire citywide for education to happen near the water. And we can absolutely do it if we all work together. Let's just start to define it and do it. I don't want to take up your whole meeting, but
Yeah, that's
anyway.
okay. Yeah, I mean, we got the harbor's a big deal. Harbor's the most important part of down here in South Redondo, right?
I think so.
Galleria in the north part, and then a Galleria and Artesia Boulevard in the north part, and the south part, Riviera Village and the harbor. So harbor is a massive revenue producing. Even today, people don't realize how much money the harbor produces for the city of Redondo Beach. I mean, Shade Hotel and Portofino make a ton of money. Captain Kids makes a ton of money for the city of Redondo. We really don't do anything for those leaseholds. It's just collecting cash.
Yeah. Well, one of the things with the STEM Fest, and this is typical of how kind of things are. So for the STEM Fest, we were bringing in the tall ships. And the last time I brought in the tall ships, we had pull from Calabasas, we had pull from Pasadena. And so if you have a platform to do that, and, because of where we're going to bring in the tall ship, which is where the right below Kincaid's there. So essentially, we're going to be at Seaside Lagoon and do a passport raffle so that they're going to have to walk around to get to the tall ship. So we want to include all the merchants in some sort of additional discount that day, or, some way that they can stamp the passports that people actually did in fact go into their establishment. So it's working with the businesses there, having education lead the way, but having the whole community benefit.
Right. No, I think it's a fantastic idea. It's like I said at the very beginning, it's like what San Pedro is doing with the National Geographic Center. And what they have going on down there. It's the educational portion is a year-round, multi-generational kind of facility that we can really utilize year-round as a foundational base for the harbor. Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I was going to just say an important point is that when you're working with schools, the calendar is Monday through Friday, September through May, usually at times when the harbor is quiet and the businesses there need additional traffic. So I know within the homeschool community, our parents stay because they drive from other parts. But it's important for people to understand that when we start to take a look at a facility like this, it's not just a weekend thing. It's, what I mean? It's more than just displays, it's activities, it's everything that goes with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm reading here, going over the comments. I'm just seeing that we are live on Facebook. Your comment here about the AES property, that's owned by Leo Polsikoff, and he actually has a deal to buy the AES property through, and he's in a foreclosure. The guy that owns the AES property, the same one who owns the Sea Lab property, and he's sued the city now 4 or 5 times, Leo Polsikoff. And it's open litigation all day long for Leo. That's number one. Number two is, I believe today or yesterday was the due date where he owes AES power generation company $37 million roughly. I think I want to say 38 million. I want to say right in there. $37 million plus or minus $1 million between friends, right? Who knows? I mean, just a little chump change. So he owes people a lot of money. He's suing everybody. He's making no friends here in Redondo or anywhere else. And he's put in two commercial residential plants for both the Sea Lab and the AES site down in the harbor. He's a speculator. He hasn't built anything. And I think there might be an opportunity for the city of Redondo in the future for the AES site. And, who knows what happens with the Sea Lab location. I know he bought that with cash, $9 million in cash, way overpaid for it, by the way, I might add. It's not worth $9 million. So that brings me to my next point is the sports fishing pier. And that's very early on when I came on on the council in 2018, I think it was, maybe 2017, 2018, I think it was 2018. City staff came to us and said, hey, the sports fishing pier is in severely bad condition. It needs roughly $700,000 of work to redo some of the pier pilings. We're gonna deem it unsafe here in a few months. We need to move Polly's on the pier off that location. It's in severe neglect. I mean, we haven't done, the city at that point in time had not done any maintenance that they needed to do, any real maintenance that they needed to do on the sports fishing pier. And so we're walking in here, or I walked in here 2017, 18, and staff says, let's just close this thing down and then get going with some other plans. I'm still kind of torn on that decision. I think maybe we would have spent the $750,000, $500,000, whatever it was. We'd have an open sports fishing pier today, and we'd have a business on there, and we'd be moving forward. So I'm a little torn as whether or not we should have spent that money or not. But there's a report that came through this last week, and basically, or 2 weeks ago, and basically said, listen, these pilings have completely eroded and disappeared from the waves, and it's likely to fall. And if you guys saw some of these storms recently that have come through in Northern California, the Capitola, some of the piers, older piers up there were absolutely destroyed and demoed and broken in half, and the ends were taken out. And so we're using that, looking at it and saying, and all these storms are our northwest and westerly swells and storms. And if we get a really quality southerly swell that comes in and enters the harbor, because the harbor entrance is pointed towards the south, that pier is dead center for the swell that comes in. So we're going to do an emergency removal, which we need to do anyways. It's going to cost us $1 million to remove that, and then we'll get rid of that pier. And here's the thing about all of these areas that we're talking about, whether it's Joe's Crab Shack or the Seaside Lagoon or this pier, this is in state lands area. So the state actually owns all this land, and all we do is manage this in a trust for them. So it's not even our money. And I'd say it's our money. It's not our money. It's not City of Redondo Beach like residents' money. It actually sits in a in a trust for the state of California. We manage it for them, and all these actions go through the Coastal Commission, Coastal Conservancy, all these different groups, and they get us money, or we use our own money that's generated within a state tidelands area. It can only be spent in the tidelands. But with that said, things like Portofino, we take out, for instance, the bed tax. So we have the TOT bed tax, 12%. So in sales tax and general tax, and we do certain charges to the tidelands. So the tidelands is a massive generator for cash to our general fund revenue through other methods. And then what's left over, essentially the pure profits, so to speak, that's left over is left in a fund called the Tidelands Fund. And it's not doing as well as it used to do in years past, because the way things have kind of gone. Joe's Crab Shack has been underperforming for years, 5, 6 years, 7 years. They haven't been doing well. They've been barely hanging on. And then some of the other locations, but it's much more stabilized. That the harbor today is producing more revenue and more cash for Redondo Beach than ever before, and that's bar none by any standard. It's Captain Kids down there is doing better than ever before. Quality Seafood is doing better than ever before. Shade Hotel is doing better than ever before. So our major leaseholders down there in the harbor, the businesses that are down there, International Boardwalk is doing extremely well. We're about at 90%, 85-90% rental space on Pier Plaza. We were down to about 75% a few months ago, and we weren't allowed to lease because of the CenterCal lawsuit, RB Waterfront lawsuit. And there was a decision that the city council made internally and said, basically, to heck with this lawsuit, and we're moving forward. We're not going to kowtow towards these lawsuits, and we're going to be moving forward. And so we're actively leasing out the harbor, the Pier Plaza. So we've gone from a 75% rental rate to now over 90%. And don't be surprised that within the next 6 months to a year, we'd be at 100% rented out space on the Pier Plaza. And again, like I said, harbor is producing enormous amounts of revenue for the city, healthier than ever before. We have our areas of concern, obviously, the Joe's Crab Shack, the sports fishing pier, all these areas. And like I said, prior meetings, the public amenities plan has been approved, and we're now on to the next step. And I believe we haven't even signed with SWA Group. We expanded their contract a little bit, and they're the actual group that is going to be doing the actually design features for the sports fishing pier, for the Seaside Lagoon. Actually, take it back, just the Seaside Lagoon. They're going to be doing the actual design work for what the lagoon's going to look like. And for that, we have about $10 million that we got from the state of California in total. So everyone knows we got about $25 million in total between AES, the AES site, and the Seaside Lagoon. So the state is getting us money. We have the money, we have the resources, and we can start applying that money. So this is, again, since this is state land and we are doing this for the state, we just applying to boat grants, boat launch grants. So I'll talk about that for a second. Greg Kapovich, our Pier and Harbor Waterfront Director, was down at convention for Department of Boating and Waterways. And the Department of Boating and Waterways is very receptive for our boat launch ramp. They were very happy that we finally chose a spot in our harbor for a boat launch ramp after 60 years. I mean, no joke, what, 60, 70 years? I mean, right, Mark, it's just like since inception of our harbor. We built it in the 1960s, and we've never had a boat launch ramp. And now in 2022, we have an actual location for our boat launch ramp, and we're applying for grants, and they will pay for the whole thing because it's, like I said, state land area and lock, stock, and barrel. You know, whatever the cost is on that, and we have our zoning to go along with it. So we have a lot of proper prior planning that we're going into all of this, and it's very strategic, very long-term range thinking, and acting very tactically, as I like to say, you know, with sports fishing pier, boat launch ramp, now Joe's Crab Shack that has kind of popped up in front of us. So Mark, you got any questions on that or comments on that?
Yeah, Neil's on the sport fishing pier. Just a couple comments. One is during the Harbor Amenities Plan working group meetings, one of the feedbacks we were getting was that Coastal Commission, you know, last we were in front of them, which was the Center Cow project, you know, we were going to have a new sport fishing pier. And there was a concern for us to go back now and try and say, oh, we're not, that, you know, they perceive that as a lot of public access. And so if we tried to go in now and say, you know, King's X, we're not going to provide that public access, they might not be happy with us. So that was a little nudge from staff and the consultants that maybe we better keep that. On the funds for the $1 million to break it down, and I mentioned this to you guys briefly at the city council meeting. I was a little concerned that this never got run by Harbor Commission. We go to all the trouble to bring the budget to them and get their inputs from the budget. And now all of a sudden we make a $1 million shuffle of funds, and they were going to take 200,000 from this and 150 from that, without ever running it by the Harbor Commission and say, hey guys, are you happy, you know, with this balance of where we're taking the money from? Then the third thing I would mention on the sport fishing pier is, of course, as you said, the storm has broken a bunch of stuff, both at Harbor Patrol and the sport fishing pier, and of course our yacht club, where two of our pilings got knocked down. And of course it's rather cost prohibitive for a little club like us to bring in a whole barge just to put in two pilings. So of course, it just as in the past, we want to dovetail on the city projects. I just wanted to, you know, if you hadn't heard that already, you know, I was just chatting with one of the Harbor Patrol, you know, boat captains, and he was telling me a little bit about the timing and that Geraldine's going to be the engineering contact. But yeah, our leadership would very much like to chat with the city and see if, you know, we can get a couple pilings thrown in while the city's doing the rest of that work.
Are you talking about the Basin 3 work?
No, talking about the Harbor Patrol, we already had a
That
big,
dock work at Harbor Patrol, are they putting
Right.
in new pilings over there?
yeah, that's my
Okay, I thought it was
understanding.
just, for some reason, I thought it was just dock work that they were doing. I didn't realize they were doing pilings as well.
Yeah, and then this, of course, the sport fishing pier, there's gonna, be a bunch of work, to demolish over there. And my understanding that there was talk about trying to coordinate the sport fishing pier project with the Harbor Patrol project, because some of the labor could be similar in terms of using the barge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So,
a good
anyway,
point. So, a lot of people think, so first of all, there's a lot of delayed maintenance in the harbor that hasn't been done in 20 plus years. For instance, I'll just start off in Basin 3, where International Boardwalk is at. Those docks need millions of dollars worth of work. It hadn't been done in years and years. I mean, we're talking over 20 years. And we had put money aside about in 2018, 19, and we're finally getting just really pushing it, because there was a lot of concern because of some of these lawsuits of the RV Waterfront and Center Cal. And we're saying, look, this is maintenance work that we've been doing. We're required to do this work regardless of any type of project moving forward. We're not adding any new features. And it is at the Coastal Commission level right now, the permits to do this work, which is roughly $3 million worth of work at the International Boardwalk for the docks that are there. The docks at the Harbor Patrol, for instance, that's another couple $100,000, $300,000-$400,000 or $500,000 of dock work. I want to say it's less than 500,000. But those docks all need a lot of work as well. And the Harbor Patrol is on Moonstone Park over at Mole B, if you guys know where that's at, for the general public. And so that's going to get done. And then now that we're officially taking out the sports fishing pier, maybe we can line up all these contracts and have people, that company that's going to do one can do kind of everything as much as possible. And Mark, I know, I saw that 2 of the pilings got taken out at the King Harbor Yacht Club there. And maybe they can just drive that boat over for a few hours and drive a couple new pilings for you guys. I mean, how expensive could that be, right?
oh yeah, that's what you guys have done in the past for us.
Yeah.
And-
Yeah,
and-
I mean, harbors are expensive. Water and ocean and waves and wind, it's all expensive. I think it's cheap, but it's not. Requires maintenance. If you don't do the required maintenance after X amount of time, then you're going to pay a lot more for it. So that kind of covers up the harbor. Any other questions on the harbor? Let me know before we move on. Yes, the National Geographic Center, San Pedro. Yes, the actual name. Yeah, Julie, it's a good question. I know the name. Someone H. Hansa Center, Harper Center. I met someone from there a couple months ago. Yeah. Anyways, all right.
Niels, you may have mentioned this before I logged on. Did you happen to mention to everyone about merging the Ruby site and the On the Rocks site for the new California Surf Club?
No, you're absolutely right. You know what? I totally forgot about that. So we signed. It went to the harbor. I'm just pausing for a moment because there's. I just want to make sure I don't talk about anything I'm not supposed to talk about. We did. Is there an official lease that came out to consent calendar?
Well, it went to the Harbor Commission for a conditional use permit, which they approved. There were 2 conditional use permits, and rather than bother to try to merge the 2, they just changed both of them. So there's still actually 2 CUPs, which is kind of funny. But I would characterize that the new owners over there, which will be Jeff Jones from Quality Seafood for Ruby's and Alan Sanford from Beach Life for On the Rocks, they requested quite a loosening of the conditional use permits in terms of operating hours, in terms of where the music could be and how long the music could be, and getting a full alcohol beverage permit for both locations. And I can tell you the Harbor Commission was very, very receptive to all of that. And in my personal opinion, the reason they were receptive, to put it informally, is it was local boys, okay? They know who Jeff Jones is. They know who Alan Sanford is. They're both guys with a proven track record, and both locals who I think we presume would not want to put, you know, something in that was a problem, like we've had some things in the past, you know, with loud drunken behavior by patrons. You know, they're locals and probably don't want to have a bad reputation for that. So in my personal opinion, that's, you know, a large part of why the Harbor Commission was so receptive to letting these guys have a lot more latitude than they let people in the past.
So to back up for 1 second, the old On the Rocks location, which is right at the base of Sports Fishing Pier, it's currently being rented right now by Alan Sanford on a month-to-month lease. And then the old Ruby's location, and Ruby's another company that's in our harbor that I guess they went bankrupt over across the board. They had locations on, their big shtick was, let's put locations and on the end of each pier everywhere. Newport, Huntington, they had one in Malibu actually, had a location obviously here in Redondo. And then so their big idea was, let's put old classic diner at all these harbors. And so COVID hit. They weren't doing well before COVID to begin with. The whole chain wasn't doing well, you know. And COVID hit. They didn't change their business, and it just kind of finally, you know, was the last straw for them. And so that facility's been sitting there, and it's been absolutely fantastic opportunity for Alan Sanford from Beach Life Festival to come in and work with Jeff Jones from Quality Seafood. So Jeff Jones is part of the family that runs Quality Seafood on the International Boardwalk, and they partnered with Alan Sanford to create this California club idea between the two locations, the waterfront, the On the Rocks location, and then the Ruby's location. They're going to work with the two together. And the problem with the On the Rocks location is that restaurant took out all their restaurant equipment. So what they're doing is creating kind of a surf club culture at the old On the Rocks location, and then they have a restaurant on the Ruby's location, and they're going to mesh the two together. So now when Beach Life comes around twice a year with 10,000 people a day, they'll really be able to energize the entire landscape as a whole, make everything work together really, really well. And what I think is really interesting about it is the vision and the planning that's going to go with it. We are still we signed a lease with for the old Ruby's location last June, and we're still looking to finish the negotiations with the lease on the Rocks location. And you'll see an amendments or the whole lease itself come up on the consent calendar in the next month or so. Depends how fast they get to it. So there's still some things to work out, but you'll see the lease conditions up there. But the concept is done. The conditional use permit is done. They're going to be investing a lot of money. I'll tell you right now, the harbor has in 6 months, it'll be a whole new harbor. You'll look down there like, wait, what's going on down there? Just those two pieces alone. In 2 years from now, you'll see construction happening and things happening down there, and you'll be like, well, wait a second, I didn't realize this is our own Redondo Beach Harbor. It's all about proper prior planning, what I said earlier. And one of the things that's been holding us back for a long time is, again, the lawsuits, the RB waterfront lawsuit. And if I'll just touch on that for a second, in the middle of December, our Redondo Beach Waterfront, or CenterCal, lost two major components of their lawsuit, again on appeal, we won on appeal again. So they're just losing in court. That's all they're doing. It's the only thing they have left, and they just keep losing and we keep winning. And as we keep winning, we keep gaining steam and moving forward and being able to do things. So Beach Life Festival is coming up in early May, May 4th and 5th. The lineup just came out. Expect them to have the On the Rocks location kind of either in progress or if not done by that point in time. By September, it'll definitely be done. So yeah, no Club Moxie, but it will be California Surf Club, and you'll go down there for a whole bunch of cool stuff. And Alan's got a lot of great ideas for that location. So it'll be really, really, really cool to see what how it transpires down there. Yeah, let's see here. Did I forget anything else in the harbor in the last month? Man, a lot has happened in the harbor in the last month. We spent the first hour here talking about harbor items. It's kind of cool. It's all positive, good things too.
Well, and of course, last night at your council meeting, Lee Caller, past Commodore of King Harbor Yacht Club, current Rear Commodore of the Southern California Yachting Association, representing 88 yacht clubs in the Southwest. He read a prepared statement that went for about 2.5 minutes, bragging about the fact that King Harbor Yacht Club and Port Royal Yacht Club were winning all kinds of regional awards, and he's incoming Rear Commodore of the Southern California Yachting Association, and a member of our club, Zafar Khan, is the incoming Vice Commodore of the Association of Santa Monica Bay Yacht Clubs, the 14 local clubs. And of course, Miss Julie Call here online, she got the SCYA, I'll just call it basically Women of the Year award. So yeah, the little Redondo Beach, which we think of as kind of a small harbor that has to toot its own horn to get any attention, regionally. My gosh, we got a lot of attention at the end of this season.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool. So yeah, our harbor is rocking and rolling. So that's really, really cool to see. Okay, so we're gonna move on. We have 7:23 here. Let's go over some council items, and we'll get to, actually no, we'll take it back. We're going to go to we have an election coming up for everyone that they have been paying attention in March. And we have, just a quick recap, we have District 3 council seat and District 5 council seat that's open. Both though, actually all the council members are turned out except for Councilmember Obaji. And what does that look like? That means we have 2 open seats for city council. We have the city treasurer's position that has 2 people going for that. And then we have the city clerk's position that's only 1 person, Elena Manzano, current city clerk, that is going for that position. We also run, I should say, the school board for the elections for the school board. And there are 2 seats open for that. And there are 3 candidates in that position, going for that position. And we also have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ballot measures on our election cycle. So let's see, there is, let me open up the thing to get this right. We have a cannabis tax, and this goes back, we just approved a cannabis ordinance allowing zoning for cannabis in Redondo Beach, but this does not include the process or licensing. We also, so part of that is a 5% fee, and what we're doing now with the cannabis tax is it is a 3 to 9% tax on cannabis, and a 1 to 3% tax on CBD. And what does that mean? From 1 to 3 and 3 to 9? That means the city council can set the tax anywhere between, via resolution, anywhere between those percentages. So the number can go up or the number can go down as we see fit, or the city council sees fit, I should say, depending upon whatever the city council wants to decide. And that is for both CBD and cannabis. And if it gets approved, it goes into the general fund. There is not a specific tax for this, or specific fund, I should say, going for this. Why I say that is because a cannabis, a tax that is a general tax goes in a general fund needs a 50% plus one to pass, and a tax that is specific to a specific fund has to have a 66% threshold of winning. That's why you'll see some taxes win or lose at 60% because they have to get a 66% win. And then the general tax, we obviously 60%. So along with that, we have 5 other charter amendments. And as we know, and I'll touch on right now, our last week's council meeting, the 17th, we had a special meeting for what was it, charter section 9 to 6.5, I want to say 9.5, 6.5. Basically, it was to deem whether or not the District 3 council seat was vacant or not, because of information that came out of the possibility of the council member in that district, Christian Horvath, not living there. There was a voter re-registration that had been done, and according to our city charter, we have to take certain actions, and the charter has shown us that we have massive gaping holes in it and that need to be fixed. And we've known this for a while. We've been pushing this, and Councilmember Baji's been really good with pushing the charter amendment or charter commission through a year ago, last spring. Said we need to get this charter commission going. It's going to take some time. And what happened last week was a perfect example of why a bad charter a charter that's been lying around since 1949 needs to be updated. And we can't just let it sit around. We got to move with the times and change things and update things and make sure that our charter, which is our constitution for Redondo Beach, is works with the current law and a current process of doing business. And you'll see 5 charter amendments on this ballot measure in March. And I'll step through them real quickly here, or real briefly, I should say, each one of them. And charter amendments 1 and 2 comes down to contracting. So charter amendment 1, it moves existing language from so there's 2 types of contracts that we have in place. We have maintenance contracts, and we have capital improvement project type of contracts. And what that comes down to is numbers, how to differentiate that. So the last time that this was updated was in 1989, these numbers, or 92, 89, 92. And if a contract of less than $15,000 can be awarded through an informal type of process, and that number is now being changed to $50,000. And the reason why we're doing that is because, well, we all know a $15,000 contract, $20,000 contract doesn't get you much nowadays. And by updating the amount on that allows contracts and things to happen faster. One of the reasons why things take such a long time in the city, for instance, in the harbor or infrastructure projects, is we're bound by our constitution, Redondo Constitution, to follow these rules. So by increasing this number, and then also making sure that the number is reevaluated at every 5 years, allows the city government, the bureaucrats, the city officials to run these contracts and sign these contracts to get these projects done faster and quicker, for cheaper, for less price. It's not a blank check for the city council, but it's a long overdue update that needs to be moving forward. Now, so that's Charter Amendment 1. Charter Amendment number 2 goes to let's see here, amending negotiating decade. So allows expedited critical equipment for public works projects. So what does that mean? Well, right now, the city when we order a street light, most companies say, that's great, the street light costs $100,000. We need you to give us $50,000 as a down payment. And most companies look at that and say that's standard practice, everyday standard practice, happens everywhere. Our charter does not allow us to give that down payment, so to speak. This is a change in the charter, allows us to do a down payment for that street light. If it costs 100 grand, you'll require 50 grand for a down payment. Boom, we'll give you 50 grand, and we can start the project. It's cheaper, it's faster. Otherwise, we have to go with a bidder who's more expensive because they have to pay for all the hardware first, and then they now will charge interest and a higher fees because they're not getting the money for 30 days after delivery of said product. And so that's going to help us move things along faster and cheaper. And again, since our charter hasn't been updated since 1949, when it was first written for a lot of these contracts, it's going to significantly help us move forward. So that's charter amendment number 2. 1 and 2 really work together well. We'll go over that in more detail later on next month when you guys get your ballots. Let's see here. Charter amendment number 3, 4, and 5. Arguments in favor, it has 3, 4, and 5. So argue in favor of number 3. Our charter amendment number 3, like I said, charter was our constitution was crafted in 1949. What does that mean? That means it was written in a manner not consistent with what we do work to think about or write law today in gender neutral way. The term he and him is used throughout the charter. It does, he and him is not defined as male or female. It's just defined as a person, and it's clearly stated. But to nowadays, these types of pronouns, we look at that and say, well, we should be using terminology like the mayor and the city council member, informal titles. So rather, we're replacing those pronouns with actual titles, such as such person and such individual, and elected titles. So mayor, council, so on and so forth. So the biggest question I get from CA3, charter amendment number 3, is how much does it cost? Why are we doing this? Well, the cost is kind of is already done, meaning the cost really is just staff time to go through the charter and update, and then print the ballot measure. After that, it's essentially done already. All the work is already done. The next question I get on this one is, why are we doing this? There was a charter commissioner appointed by Laura MD. She brought this up during the charter commission over the summer. Charter commission looked at it and said, well, I mean, there's nothing really, doesn't stop us from doing anything or move anything, stop us from moving forward or anything. It's just kind of a changing the terminology. So because of that, they recommended that to us to do the charter, the gender change. And so we did that. And away we go for charter amendment number 3. So a gender neutrality. And all of these charter amendments, by the way, that I'm talking about already are inherent with the charter charter gender neutrality. So you'll see that here, number 4, number 5, I believe. So charter amendment number 4, make sure I get this right. Impartial argument in favor of charter number 4 is about, let's see here, how do I say this? It allows the city manager or any other city official to sign certain contracts rather than forcing the mayor or mayor pro tem to sign the contract. So what does that mean? That means every contract that comes through city council, whether it's on the consent calendar or as a discussion item, has to be signed by the mayor. Well, if the mayor's not around, the mayor pro tem has to sign. And I've been signing a lot lately, and process, I'll just say, we've only instituted DocuSign recently because there was some issue with the city attorney had some issues with using DocuSign, the way the contract was worded. So all these had to be signed individually. So now we can do it via DocuSign. It goes a little bit faster, but still it takes time. And when something has to get notarized, it takes even longer because now it has to be done when the mayor is available or the mayor pro tem is available. If the city manager or a department head is available to sign it, the city council can say, we deem the city manager or other city official to sign the contract. Now, the city council still has to vote on and approve the contract. It's just about signing the contract at the end of the day. Why is this important? Again, this comes down to executing contracts faster, saving time, saving money. The Redondo Constitution was crafted in 1949, the age where black and white TV and radio was the primary broadcasting method of getting information out there. Internet wasn't around. We didn't have digital services. And most of our services back then all came internally from within the city of Redondo Beach. Nowadays, in order to sign a contract, we have to prepay things. Things got to move forward faster, quicker, easier. And because we're kind of stuck, you'll see, like for instance, you'll see in the harbor, things take a lot longer to happen because we have to negotiate and deal with terms and conditions. Now it's going to be moving faster. So public work contracts will be executed faster. Getting supplies, equipment will be faster. And so one more contract amendment. Let's see here, CA5, instant runoff elections. So CA5 is about charter amendment number 5. And this is about the.
Can you go back to the one you were just talking about for a second?
Yes, contracts, approval, and signatures. Go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt, but I had a
That's all
question.
right. If you have any, sorry, I wasn't looking at my thing. So if any of you guys have any questions, just jump on in.
So my question is, you said the city attorney had some issue with DocuSign, but you're still going to be doing stuff by DocuSign. So did his issue with DocuSign go away all of a sudden?
We were using DocuSign. Great question. I kind of skipped over a couple steps. We were using DocuSign, then we stopped using DocuSign. The city attorney said he's not going to agree to some of these terms, didn't feel it, and so we weren't using DocuSign for a long time. Now we're using DocuSign again because some of the terms must have changed, but it just means that those terms can change again. And I think the fluidity in there is what the city attorney was worried about. Now, I don't remember us signing we did. I don't know when we signed the new updated agreement with DocuSign. But I know that I've been doing a DocuSign since July, September. Since I was mayor pro tem last year, I don't know how the mayor was signing things last. When I say last year, I mean from June 30th prior. So yeah.
So somehow whatever the problems were, like all of a sudden went away, we think.
All of a sudden the problems went away. I'm not sure why. City attorney makes a lot of decisions back there. And we had the contract and then all of a sudden it went away and then it came back again. So yeah, a lot happening in this
It's
city.
making me dizzy.
It's
Wayne, you're all those fish.
I mean, it's like Mark was saying and Julie was saying earlier about the what's it called, the Joe's Crab Shack being for rent. All of a sudden now Joe's Crab Shack is for lease for 3 to 5 years, and we're like, oh, we didn't know that. There's a drone video footage, and there's this, there's that. A lot happening in this city. Can't keep tabs on everything.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, and if any other questions, we'll get to the end here. If you, as soon as I get instant runoff, we'll do some more questions, or you can just butt on in. The last one here is CA5. instant runoff elections. So what does this mean? This means in our city charter, currently, you have to win by 50% plus one. That's not changing. Which means when you run in an election, there's 3 people or 4 people, you have to get 50% of the votes plus one. So if it's a 50-50, then nobody wins. You go to a runoff, or actually 50-50, you go to the coin toss. And if there's 3 people and one person got 48% and the other 2 get the remaining percentage points, the top 2 highest vote getters go to a runoff in 3 months later, 2-3 months later. So what does that come down to? That comes down to 3 more months of campaigning. That talks about knocking on doors for 3 more months. That's a whole nother campaign, raising funds one more time. And that goes down to a point of voter apathy, and voters want to make a decision one time and they want to move on. And so this is a method that we can institute in Redondo. So people run one time, and it has shown to get more people run for a certain elected position. You'll get more people running for a position and a higher voter turnout. That's the goal. That's the aim. And essentially the way it works is you rank your choices 1, 2, 3. Who's your best choice? And there's a process of elimination. The first round, if nobody gets 50% plus one, and through the first round, the lowest vote getter is thrown out, and then the tabs are run. Election is run one more time, or retabulated, I should say, or retabulated one more time. And then if there's no highest vote getter, 50% plus one, then the lowest vote getter is thrown out, and then it gets retabulated one more time. It goes until you have 50% plus one. It is, I'll have a better explanation. We'll do a better video and explanation Zoom meeting on this next month. And again, you get to vote on all this, see whether you like this or not, like this idea. A lot of cities that have had this come to their election have voted to do this. It's been used in other states. There's been in New York, it's been done, I believe somebody said Alaska, and for national elections, but it's been going on for council races for quite a while. So anyone have any questions on that? Let's see here, any comments? Problems with voting, choice voting during national past elections. Yeah, Eric, I don't know. I've looked into some of that stuff. Some of it has been, I'm not sure how to define the problems they've had. Like in New York, they had to wait till all the ballots came in, because if you have a close election, just like a normal election, you have to wait till all the ballots really come in before you can really make the final determination. And I'm no expert on it. I don't want to sit here and tell you guys that, I'm an expert on it. By no means am I an expert on it. The way it works, we'll get an instant runoff voting person to come in and talk about it. There's some videos out there. We'll show the videos and we'll go through it and do a really educated point of view on that. So any other questions on that? Raise your hand or comments.
I think it's just going to be confusing. You're going to have to explain to people, and people are going to get really confused, I think. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a new concept. I mean, the thing is, you can still vote for only one person. This came up during our community meeting here on Saturday, a few weeks ago. You can still vote for just one person. So every time the voting comes through, you vote just for one person. That vote stays put. It is confused. It is something you have to wrap your head around and understand how it works. And yeah, we'll see. Go ahead, and I would I don't want to sell it and educate people or the wrong way, or try to act like I'm trying to sell it. I voted to put it onto the election so that people can actually vote on it and have a choice whether or not. Arguments in favor of was written by Councilmember MD and signed by all of us on the council, except for Councilmember Obaji, who didn't want to take a position on that. Let's see. All right. Let's see. Last week, if no one has any questions on that, I don't see any hands up. All right. So last week on the agenda, we had a lot on the agenda. We had online services, discussion and possible action regarding to expand the number of city services provided online. So this is something I've really been pushing for many, many years. And, you know, if you think the city is simple, let me tell you, it's not. There's a lot going on in the city. There's a lot of permits being issued. There's a lot of processes happening. There's a lot of personnel doing a lot of work. There's a lot of actions happening in the city. And that's why you have a city manager. We have one employee in the city council, and city manager. And city manager takes care of everything that's happening in the city. And we on the council, it's our job not to look at the details, but it's our job to make sure that the city as a whole is running correctly and identify problems and identify solutions to go along with those problems and implement those set solutions. And one of the things that I've said for many, many years is we need to stop using paper and start using online digital portals so people can do things via forms, doing things online. Well, we're getting a new website. I've said for many years that our website needs work. We're finally getting around to it because it takes a lot of work to do. It's not something that you just wake up one day and say, hey, we're going to redo the website. It's I want to say, our last budget cycle, Councilmember Lowenstein and I allocated over $100,000 to $110,000 to redo the website. City staff were like, oh, we can just use $50,000 or $60,000. Councilmember Lowenstein and I looked at the scope and said, nope, this is going to take a lot more. We want to do a good quality job. Let's put a quality RFP out there. And we got, I think, 19 or 20 responses. Went through a whole RFP process. We awarded a contract to a company called Revise. They do fantastic web work. And one of the reasons why we chose them was because they have a whole system to implement online forms for processing permits, business permits, licensing, payment of certain payment of permits and fees and everything else you got to pay your money for to the city. A lot of these things nowadays, I rented out the Seaside Lagoon back in September. I had to go to 3 different locations in the city to give 3 different checks and pay in 3 different locations. Like I said, 3 different locations, 3 different checks to rent the Seaside Lagoon. Why wasn't that one check in one location and everyone knew what was going on? It was completely set up in silos. So what we're doing now is setting up permits, licenses, applications online, digital. It will be tracked online. There will be a history that goes along with it, and then you'll be able to take an invoice, paid online, and each department gets paid accordingly, and there'll be full tracking. Or show up in person with a check and pay in person by check. Our city has been stuck in paper forms to this day. And what we're doing now is going online, getting things digitized. And it's one of the things that I've been fighting really hard to get done. And it's only happening, quite honestly, it's only happening because, Councilmember Lowenstein and I have been pushing it so hard. And we got Councilmember Obaji on board and looked at it. We just doing all the things he wanted to do in Artesia and realized that he can't do the things he needs to do in Artesia without getting some of these efficiencies in place. So here we are in 2023, finally getting things like business permit applications, garage sale affidavits, claim forms, barbecue rentals, meeting room reservations, library card applications, material purchase requests, block party permits, all these things are now going to be able to be done online versus via paper. And here's the best part, it's all going to be done within 6 months. It's all going to be part of our website revamping. And that is a really, really, really big part of what we're working on with the website update. So, because our old website couldn't handle any of this stuff. So, Mel, you got a question?
Thank you, Niels. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me to your meeting. This is so much better than what I've been accustomed to here in my district. And it's great seeing you again this year. On this website update, I am so glad that's moving forward. And I'm glad that we're automating a lot of these processes. But one of the things that has been driving me crazy for years, and I've not gotten good answers, is the fact that our city clerk's office makes sure that all of the documents that we have related to council meetings and otherwise are as dumb as possible. Instead of simply PDFing a Word document so that it's searchable, instead they print it out and then scan it so it's a dumb document. And that way nothing can happen. I have gotten some very bad answers out of the city clerk's office regarding things that I knew were done. I just couldn't find them. So is there any chance that this whole website update is also going to include how do we do things more intelligently in terms of documentation throughout the city?
So our city clerk is an elected position. And when it comes to agenda management and agenda processing, agenda creation, that's under that department. You are absolutely right. It is not a joke what Mel just said. Agendas or certain things are printed and then scanned in and then created in a PDF. Some of that has been updated and fixed. And part of the problem with that is the agenda management system that we're using, which also happens to be the same website provider that we're currently using. If you see a theme with the website provider, agenda management system provider all being the same, streaming, same thing, it's all related. It's the same company. So there are way better agenda management systems out there. It's something I've harped on as well. Councilmember Baji has been phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal with getting our agendas with the links clickable in the agenda. That wasn't happening before. Some of the stuff like contracts have to be scanned in, and then because they require a physical signature and you can't just scan the last page, you have to scan the whole contract, and then it kind of goes into the system. But even within that scope, when you scan a document in, you can use an OCR program, and then it automatically creates OCR stands optical character recognition. So basically it recognizes there's text, and it recognizes the letter T, letter I, letter E, letter A, and it becomes a searchable document, to your point, Mel, actual searchable document. That is actually something I need to go over with the city clerk and see if they're doing it that way. I don't think they are. But that comes right to the whole agenda management website. And it's like I said, the city of Redondo Beach is running a city is tough because there's a lot of moving pieces. We are not alone. There's a lot of requirements, legal requirements. And there's records retention and records requests, a whole bunch of stuff that's happening. And then on top of that, the software just sometimes isn't there. And if you want to change the software, it's usually connected to another piece of software. And you have to break that connection. And in order to do that, it brings up a whole can of worms. So you have to do things very methodically, very strategically, and it takes time. And so that's why we've chose this company, Revise, to do the work that they're doing. They're very good at doing exactly that. Mark, your hand is up.
Yeah, I want to dovetail on Mel's comment. That has been enormously frustrating for me because I try to take your agenda items and summarize them in down to something that folks can just quickly understand what we're talking about. And because they scan documents instead of the very simple process, it's a click of a button to change a Word doc into a PDF, but staff doesn't do it. They scan it. And so I can't copy off the PDF. If I do, all the spaces between words are gone. So it's just, hours to try to put all the spaces back in. And it's faster for me to just retype the words. But where I'm trying to provide a real service and support the city by sending my summaries out, sometimes it's just about this side of impossible to do because those things have been scanned instead of converted into a PDF. Also, I want to mention that I'm going to take a guess. It was like 3 years ago, they updated the website, and I guess their claim to fame is it was going to work on our phones also. It was a giant step backwards. Suddenly you couldn't get to any of the commissions, depending on what operating system you're on. To this day, I cannot get to any of the commissions. What they did is they put in these little space saver pages that have absolutely no information, don't link to anything, and it's just a complete dead end. Yeah, so boy, it needs help.
Yeah, like I said, when the new website came out, I was like, this is not new. This is not good. Can I get the old one back? One chunk of the pie at a time, before you can't do everything at once, right? So that's what it comes down to. So that comes on for that. Let me look up my agenda. What else did we have on the agenda for last week? Let's see, is this the 17th? We had a lot of stuff on the 17th. Yeah, we had a full agenda on the 17th. We can get out of there until late. CBG, a lot of consent. One way to tell if the city is busy with a lot of things going on is look at the consent calendar. If you look at the consent calendar, there's 5 or 6 items or 10 items, there's not much going on. If there's 15, 20 items, like, that's a good amount. Last week, we had 26 items on the consent calendar. Agreements, strategic plan updates, approvals. That shows you right there that city staff is working. They're getting a lot done. I mean, 26 items on a consent calendar. I think I've seen the most. I think I've ever seen it one time, like 31 or 30 items, 31 items or something. So that's a big deal, to say the least. So things are happening, and you think that things aren't happening in Redondo Beach? They are. I mean, believe you me. All right. Immediate demolition of the going over that community. Oh, archway piece. So this is really cool. So this is a fun little topic. So a couple of years ago, when we approved the largest development project in the history of the South Bay, which is the South Bay Galleria. We say that one more time for everyone. The largest development project in the entire South Bay was approved in January of 2019. Part of that approval came with something that I fought for and got, which is $2 million for Artesia Boulevard. And it came in direct funding and through art program funding. And that can be used only on Artesia Boulevard. And the reason why is because you have this massive billion-dollar project that's being built on the South Bay Galleria when it's all done and complete. And when that's done and complete, you have this beautiful location, and Artesia Boulevard needs all this work. It's like this kind of like, not so good boulevard, but yet you've got this massive, huge, brand new place. So I said, wait a second, we got to have a beautiful corridor that leads up to the South Bay Galleria. And we need to build something, a corridor that's well lighted and well lit and nice trees and a grand entrance to get people from Hermosa and Manhattan Beach to come down Artesia Boulevard and just kind of like when you go to Disneyland. On the signs of the freeway, you'll see the Disneyland structures and signs, and you'll know you're getting close, and all of a sudden you get off on the Disneyland, all of a sudden it's like, oh, there's Disneyland. So it becomes a Disneyland motif and becomes nicer and nicer. And then you show up to the park and oh my gosh, there's a park, and then you walk through the gates and down near Disneyland, right? It's a stepped up approach process. Same idea, same concept. So there's an archway. One of the ideas here is to build an archway on Artesia Boulevard. And they've talked about this archway for many years. And now that we have funding for this, we have Greg Kapovich, who's in charge of both the harbor, and he's also the economic director. Let me see if I can. I don't have any pictures for this. No, we don't have any pictures for this. But basically, $300,000-$400,000, $500,000. You know, some of these archways in other cities. You know, historic Filipino town from LA City. One in San Pedro. One in La Mesa. These were all in the staff report. If you go up and down the coastline, I know Dana Point has one. There's a lot of other cities that have archways. So when you enter a city or an area, how these archways that kind of go across kind of welcomes you to the city, and you know you've entered the city, kind of a grand entrance. So we approved this process with, I said, made sure that they understand that the Riviera Village has been talking about this as well, and the Riviera Village has wants to move forward with this as well. So whatever process we use, whatever design we use, we're going to duplicate to use for the Riviera Village, so that they get an archway as well. Again, creates community, creates a sense of place, sense of being, infrastructure updates. When the city invests in the infrastructure, the infrastructure, or the private commercial businesses will therefore update themselves as well, their own businesses. And that's happened in the Riviera Village. We've done paver projects, and you know, it's the businesses down there are doing much better. We had record sales tax revenue in the Riviera Village, so that's a big deal. All right, what else? Let's see, administrative report. Going through the agenda, that kind of brings us to a close for the meeting on the 17th. Going over the 3-4 items we have. Oh, we had the tree ordinance item as well. It's the draft tree ordinance. What was approved was mandating that trees in parkways cannot be removed without a permit, and we defined heritage trees in Redondo Beach, and the draft, the trees in parks, parkways, city property are all, if they're over a certain size and type and age, they become a protected heritage tree. And one of the things I've been pushing for a long time is our city become more tree friendly and could create a better tree canopy. You'll notice that cities that have tree ordinances have higher property values, more sense of community, and have a whole host of other better positive community-based features, such as Manhattan Beach, San Carlos in the Bay Area has a tree ordinance. Beverly Hills has a tree ordinance. Palos Verdes Estates, Orange County, a lot of cities in Orange County have tree ordinances, and it's kind of a stepping stone to make sure that trees last for a long time, stay for a long time, because nobody's going to stand up for them other than a somebody who might own them. Mel, your hand is up.
Yeah, just really quickly. So as it was passed, and I'm sorry I didn't follow it at the time, this only affects trees that are on parkways and that are city owned. This doesn't affect things like backyards and all the other trees that we have around the city.
That's correct. So the original draft ordinance had in there applying to the setback zones of the non-buildable setback zones of private property. And this is not going to apply to that. So that was taken out of this draft ordinance.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions or comments on that? You see here on, let's see here, Facebook. We'll be doing on Facebook. All right, so that kind of rounds up last week.
Hey, Niels?
Yes,
One last thing on the 17th, which was on the consent calendar, item H14, extended the contract with Noble Consulting to continue to work, I think, for 5 years on the dredging project. But I think in the admin report, it really didn't tell us a darn thing about what the current timeline. I get questioned about that constantly. Have you heard anything?
I have not. I think part of the problem is they found DDT right where the Seaside Lagoon is, right where they were going to open up the Seaside Lagoon. Or actually, no, take it back. It's part of they did not test there. That was the issue. They need to do dredging in that area. They didn't do dredging in that area, but they found DDT in the other portions of the harbor. I think they have to get funding from the state because it's in the tidelands, and they have to get approval from the Coastal Commission. I think it's at the Coastal Commission level. You get approval and then award the contract. So total contract amount. Yeah, it doesn't say in a staff report either. That's a great question.
Right. The one question everybody's asking wasn't in the report. And on that, the pollution thing, I know one of the little dramas we had with Harbor Commission was that the staff was originally proposing to take some of the DDT and whatever the other chemical is that was in the dirt at the south end, pardon me, the north end of the harbor, and simply dump it into the north end of the harbor where it's 35 deep. And Harbor Commission was adamantly opposed to that, and they wrote their own letter to the Army Corps, kind of embarrassing staff, but they obviously felt staff wasn't listening, so they had to write their own letter. But one of the things, of course, I've been fielding a lot over the last week and a half here with the storm is that now we've got even more rocks and more dirt piled up between the rocks and the yacht club docks, where we used to be able to bring boats in between the docks and the rocks. You could bring a boat in and do a complete U-turn and go back out. Now at low tide, you can't even get a boat in there. So one of the things that folks were asking me to make sure we got a message over to the city was, that they realized just how horrible it was at that far north end, and that really needs to be addressed.
It does, and it's funny you bring this up, right? I'm actually I'm writing right now as we speak to Greg to find out the dredging schedule, and I'm saying that because of the destruction at the end of Mole A there was enormous with the waves and everything that's happening. I wonder what's happened to that sand. It's got to had to have added more sand to that area from Hermosa. I'm assuming the sand comes from Hermosa Beach as it moves its way down through the rocks. Could be wrong. Otherwise I don't know really where it comes from. That's the only thing I could think of.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's low tide right now this time of year in the late afternoon. You'll be able to walk. You can walk in our harbor. Walk in our harbor at low tide in the winter months. It's kind of funny.
It's embarrassing that we've let it go this long.
We've had a lot of deferred maintenance over the last 20, 30 years in our harbor. We've just kind of been sucking cash out of our harbor without doing the maintenance. And things take a while too, things just, you got to go through the state, you got to go through the federal government, Army Corps of Engineers, and all these other agencies and get approval and process and testing. There's a lot of different steps that have to happen. And if you don't do those steps right one at a time and constantly stay after it, things don't happen. So, yeah.
Nils, I have a question going back to the tree ordinance. I didn't
Yes.
think I spaced out, but I didn't really hear or understand. What about the parkways? The residents can remove things from the parkway or cannot?
No, well, no, Parkway is owned by the city. So
Right.
it's not owned by the residents. So this ordinance, so a lot of the problems that we've been having is somebody buys a piece of property and they demo the house and they say, I want to move the garage to the other side of the house. I'm going to take this 20, 30-year-old tree out just because I want to move the garage to the other side. driveway. And you're taking out a 20, 30-year-old tree just because you want to move a driveway on city land. And it applies, the tree ordinance only applies to the sidewalk and parkway areas, not residential property, the way it's been approved right now.
Okay, so what if you have a situation where the tree roots are lifting up the sidewalk and all that? That's the city is
It's the
responsible?
city is responsible for that regardless. And city comes through and does sidewalk maintenance and fixes the sidewalks and ensures that the sidewalks are fixed. We just won a big sidewalk lawsuit actually a few months ago, this last September, I want to say. And someone sued the city of Redondo Beach on tripping on a sidewalk. Yeah, I think down here in District 1, I want to say, maybe it's District 2, I think it's District 1. And we proved and shown that the program we had in place prevents us from being liable on the liability portion because we have a sidewalk maintenance program in place, essentially.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. Eric, your question real quick for the boat launch ramp, timeline for the boat launch ramp, probably, I mean, cutting the ribbon on that, 3 years, probably. We have to get design and it has to get approved by Coastal Commission. So Coastal Commission takes about a year. Design takes about a year, Coastal Commission takes about a year. And I always throw an extra year in there just because that's just, delays. So I think 2 to 3 years, I think, are comfortable for the boat launch ramp. Meanwhile, all the other parts that we're working on will be subsequently happening as well. Let's see. All right. That leaves us to I think it's all on the 17th, and then that leaves us to the meeting. I would like to say the meeting last night, which is really the meeting this morning. Our city council meeting literally went until 4:15 a.m. There was a project. I'm not going to get far into it just because I'm tired of talking about it so much, but we'll get into it more later on next month. Basically, there is a project that came to the city council. It was approved at the planning commission level on Catalina. There's a 30-unit, 122-bedroom project with what's called a historic district. So the old Catalina Coffee site. So the Catalina Coffee, if you know where Catalina Coffee is at, right next to the door to that on the left-hand side is an old white building, which was used for years as cleaners and as maintenance and storage for the old red car lines. So one could only imagine back when they were working on the red cars, what kind of toxic substances they were working on. Let's just say DDT, arsenic, and other types of pollutants. So a lot of that property is filled with that stuff. And there's the old Masons Lodge on the right-hand side. There's an old Masons Lodge. And I think it's the original Masons Lodge in Redondo Beach. But all three of those buildings are historical buildings, historical concept, and there's a concept that came through to build out at maximum 140% residential density. What does that mean? It means you not 100% density, 140% density, meaning the developers taking advantage of affordable housing laws and bumping the density by 40% to 30 units. And in total from those 30 units, there were 122 bedrooms. And you might be asking yourself, how does that work? 122 bedrooms with 30 units? Well, basically the entire project, residential portion of the project is what's called co-living, and all the individual bedrooms will be rented out individually. So there's maybe one leaseholder on the master unit or master unit, but then all the subunits, which is the other units in place, they are in charge of, or excuse me, all the subunits or sub living or bedrooms in there are all rented out individually. And the environmental impact report did not take into effect multiple factors such as in a significant increase in higher residential density, 20% higher density, and than what was originally proposed for actual people, actual feet living on the ground, because of this type of co-living concept. And because of the commercial portion being on site as well, there was a significant amount of lack of parking, and that then equated to a huge impact to the coastal zone. So just briefly, real quick, I'll just tell you, the Coastal Commission controls the entire state of California. The Coastal Act of 1976 that was voted in by the voters is the highest form of zoning and governing law along our coastline. Some of it's good, some of it's bad. It is what it is, and the Coastal Commission was created from that Coastal Act. We have what's called our local coastal plan. It is a plan that has been ordained by the Coastal Commission, and they have said this plan is sufficient and you guys can issue permits on behalf of us. And so we act as if we are the Coastal Commission. It is a very serious, very serious, I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but responsibility. It's a very serious responsibility given to us. And I, as someone who works on the coastline, who represents the beach portion of the coastline, understands the impacts of creating density commercial in the coastal zone, which prevents people from accessing the coast via pathways to the coastline, parking to the coastline, and coastal amenities along the coastline. And we voted the project down on a multitude of issues, from health and safety issues, Coastal Act issues, environmental report issues, a whole gamut of issues. And it did not go the way I was expecting to go. I'll just say that. It's amazing how some of these council meetings go. You can't talk to majority of the council, and you might walk in there with a kind of a concept idea of what you want to do, and then you'll walk out with something completely different. And that's the way these council meetings go. It is really important that people understand that that there's a lot happening, a lot of different rules, a lot of different regulations, a lot of different political motives, a lot of city motives, a lot of people's, you can't think of everything. It's why we have 5 different council members with 5 different points of view, and they're all legitimate. They're all representing and come with a different thought process. And it was, like I said, 4:15 a.m. Wayne Craig just said 4:14 a.m. In the middle of all that, at 2:30 or 3 o'clock in the morning, there was a 3.5 earthquake, and you can see it on the video last night. So it's really, I'll just say that it was a lot of work to go through. I spent probably, I don't know, 200 hours, 300 hours probably on this project alone in the last 6 months, looking at this the last week or two alone. The last couple of days, we spent 10 hours on this alone at the city council meeting. I watched every single planning commission meeting. There was 3 planning commission meetings. There were 7-8 hours each, I want to say. There's just a ton of time, and a lot of time that happening with other portions of the project that you have to learn, the Coastal Act and zoning and so on and so forth. So anyways, I don't want to bore you guys with that. If there's anyone else with any, let me look at my agenda here real quick. There's a couple of things on here. Let's see, there is, I want to throw this in the link. There is a SCE forum, Southern California Edison forum on high electric prices. That is the registration link I just sent. And SoCal Edison is Power Talk, all about power, why, how to prepare for outages, cost of power, customer support programs, so on and so forth. Monday, January 30th. Inside joke, the people who live in District 2, 6 to 7 p.m., you should show up to that. Other than that, let's see here, cannabis tax, other items, online services, RTO, right way, blah, blah, blah. All right, Mr. Solomon, your hand is up, and anyone else that wants to say anything, you are ready to go. Mr. Solomon, go for it.
Thanks. You probably already covered the charter amendments. I came in late. I apologize for that. The first two charter amendments are things that Mel Samples can attest to this, that we started working on in the Budget and Finance Commission 6 years ago to try and get some of the numbers updated, to get shovels in the ground faster for the city, to get projects going faster. We sent 2 letters to the city council that they hadn't taken up 2 or I guess it was 3 years ago now, or 4 years ago. And then we got the Charter Advisory Committee set up. And from that, and I've sit on the Charter Advisory Committee, we got these things on the ballot to get updated. So it's a long time coming. Those, especially those first 2, really make things happen in the city faster. Other things that if anybody's interested, on the Charter Review Committee, we meet last Thursday of every month. We're starting back up again after a 2-month hiatus. So tomorrow night, for example, we're talking about city clerk, city treasurer, residency requirements, moral turpitude. We've talked about the city attorney's role. We've talked about a lot of different things. And if you want to try and get the charter updated, or you have some ideas of something in the city that you thought, wow, that's not great, that needs to be fixed, or I'd like to see that fixed, it's a good chance it's addressed in our charter. So maybe bring those things forward and tune in and make a suggestion on non-agenda, because as a body, we can discuss those things and bring them to the council if they make it through our vote. So this is a great opportunity for everybody in the city to say, this seems outdated. What can we do to improve our quality of life and experiences in the city? There might be things that we can't do, but I'm going to say that because it's our constitution, it's a pretty good chance it might be able to address it, at least to get the discussion going for everybody. So thanks for letting me say that.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. I mean, listen, our city constitution needs to be updated. It's 1949 when it was written. A lot of things in here need to get updated. We just had a meeting last week where there was a major glaring hole about, residency and this and that, and this big discussion. All these things, it leads to one pointed fact: our city charter, our city needs to be updated. We've been stuck in the past, and a lot of things by amending our charter with I don't want to thank you, Mr. Eugene, for doing the work with Mel on the Charter Commission and on the Budget and Finance Commission, because this is going to save us taxpayers a ton of money moving forward, making things more efficient and making the city run smoother and faster, getting things done faster. Gene, your hand is up.
Yes, 2 things. One, we were talking about before, the website. I've looked for the city charter. I can't find it anywhere on there, number 1. And number 2, Eugene, I hope you guys are going to discuss what's a resident and who has to be a resident to hold whatever offices or whatever. So I don't know if you need a referral or someone to come to close to the agenda, non-agenda items I think that you guys have already been told to do that. So I hope you will take that up.
That is on the agenda for tomorrow night.
Good, thank you.
So the meeting starts at 7 p.m. You can view it off the city website or on YouTube.
And how do I get a copy of the charter off the website?
I don't know where it is on there. I have to be
Why
honest.
isn't it on there?
Surprise. Okay, I'll answer that for you. You're not gonna like this answer.
I can send you one.
Oh, you go. You have a paper copy. That's right. You do. On the Charter Commission, you get a paper copy. Here's the answer for you. It's not on the website. Because let's see, it goes back. So again, we have an elected city attorney, and the city attorney has his own department, and he's kind of in charge of, well, he is in charge with the ordinances and laws, the charter, and so forth. And we use a system called Q Code, and I just put the link into the chat, both chats. And Q Code is a third party. It's a horrible old system, hasn't been updated in years. It's horrific. I'll just tell you, it is absolutely horrific. Go to City of Manhattan Beach and look up their municipal code. Just look up City of Redondo Beach municipal code. They have a different system. It is utterly amazing. It is way better. You can log in. It sends you updates. It is an awesome system. Ours is old school. Ours is just doesn't get updated. I put the link on there. It's not on the website itself. It should be. You're absolutely right. So we're gonna update that. Eugene, you said that it's on the agenda for residency next week
Tomorrow, he said,
or tomorrow.
you're mute, you're
You're
muted.
Thank you. The last item on the agenda, when I looked at it, was the residency and moral turpitude, if I remember correctly.
That's really weird. Because my motion was to bring the resolution back, and it has to, technically speaking, according to the city attorney, it has to be in the city in the resolution. Yeah, something's weird going on. Again, something's weird going on with that. I mean, you guys should talk about it. You should be talking about it. You should be. But they made a big deal. You're supposed to get a law firm signed and done so you can start talking about some of the legal aspects of the city charter. And that was supposed to come back in December, but technically in November. And it hasn't come back yet. I've been on it. So I'll have to see what is going on with that. But I'm glad you guys are discussing it. It needs to be updated. I have a few words to say on that. So yeah, city moves forward. You know, we get done at 4:15 in the morning, and city has a meeting. I think they had a commission meeting tonight, I want to say, and there's one tomorrow night. And city clerk keeps moving forward. There's a lot going on in the machine of the city of Redondo Beach.
So the agenda item, the next step for the legal process is not on the agenda for this week, but the last item on the agenda it's J1, discussion and possible action as it pertains to moral turpitude, clarifying residency requirements, and analysis pertaining to extending the required residency period for elective office from 30 days to 1 year, as directed by the city council. So that is on action item for the agenda for this week. For tomorrow night.
There you go. Perfect. All right. Anything else from anyone else? Has anything on there they want to talk about? You want to bring up? Mark, got anything on? Eugene, see who else we have left on here? Eric. Eric, just so you know, in February, we're going to be coming back and talking about the Project Moonstone Park, Project Moonstone on PCH. That will be coming back at the end of the month, third meeting in February. So let's see. Anything else? Anyone on Facebook? Let me check them on Facebook. Any idea what's up on Pat's 2 and Zana space? No, I don't know what's going on in the Pat's 2 place. So the owner that owns the corner of PCH and Avenue, was that Avenue D, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, I want to say Avenue F and PCH, Pat's 2. Pat's 2 lost their lease, and their last day was on Sunday night, this is January 6th. And the Zana's Grill is out of there as well. Zana's Grill moved to Artesia Boulevard to Natural Food Market or something like that. And they combined the restaurant into one, Zana's and Natural Food Market into one. Pat's 2 has their alcohol license. They're looking for a new space. I'm not sure what's going on with that location. I don't know why the owner did not renew the lease on those two, or why they moved. Not sure what's going on. Maybe they have something else that they want to do. But that's the word on the street for that. And on the corner of Avenue E and PCH, the old Arby's location, that corner changed hands. I believe I heard the rumors is that the building was sold, land was sold, and Two Guns Coffee is going in there. So if you know Two Guns Coffee from Manhattan Beach, they will be moving into that location on the corner of Avenue E and PCH. All right. Anyone else?
Oh, I
Last
have
call.
a question.
Yeah,
The question is, what about the dead body in the Vons parking lot?
so I don't know about this dead body, supposed dead body in the parking lot. I get notified of everything that happens, and I was not notified of anything of that.
Oh,
I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just saying I don't recall at this point in time me being notified of something like that. I think the person was unconscious. I think that's something happened, person was unconscious, they showed up. That's from what I saw some post somewhere.
yeah, I
Uh,
saw next door or something. I don't
yeah.
remember.
Social media, the land of fact.
I know I shouldn't even look at that stuff, but okay. No
Yeah,
doubt.
I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I'll try to find out and let you know. So, all right. Who had a job fair? Who had a job fair? Who had a job fair, Eugene? I don't know. Mayor Brand is in Houston right now. He's coming back tomorrow night. I can publicly report, I talked to him earlier today. I'll publicly report that he got onto his trial that he was hoping to get onto. It's not easy to get onto these trials. And he's coming back tomorrow. And it is a highly specialized drug for exactly what the type of cancer he's got. And it's he's an amazing man who's battling through a lot of fights, and he's got the energy. So it's pretty cool to see what he's doing. So he'll be back tomorrow night. He really wanted to be there last night, but he was recused anyways from last night. So he was not available to talk about that regardless. So we wouldn't have been able to be there. So Two Guns Coffee had a job fair open ready. Oh, got it. Okay. Two Guns. If anyone wants to be a barista, Two Guns is hiring. So there's my plug for Two Guns over and over again. All right. So that ends up with this. I will see you guys next month. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me or whatever. And thank you guys all for showing up on this Wednesday night. Enjoy. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.